President Trump has said the American dream is back in a major speech to mark the 250th anniversary of U.S. independence.
After 250 years, American freedom still rings, the American dream still lives, and the American flag still flies more proudly than ever before over the people who will not quit, the nation that will not fail, the country that will not fall. No matter how hard the enemy tries, we cannot be beaten. Tomorrow we reach a milestone like no other and celebrate with joyful hearts and soaring spirits, because after 2.5 centuries, we know that this is not an ending. This is only the beginning of the golden age of America. And together we will make America bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. I promise you that. It's an honor to be your president. Thank you very much, and happy Independence Day to all. God bless you all. God bless you all. Thank you.
On July 4, 2026, the United States marked the 250th anniversary of its independence under an official dual-track framework, a bipartisan commemoration body established by Congress named America 250, running alongside a separate executive-managed initiative named Freedom 250. What was designed as a statutory milestone of national unity instead exposed a deep institutional fracture as severe weather, security evacuations, and highly partisan rhetoric collided at the National Mall. While tens of thousands of citizens navigated extreme heat waves and conflicting administrative directives, the event became a case study in how federal landmarks are staged and contested. By the end of this breakdown, you will understand how the legal and structural machinery behind America's semiquincentennial milestones has shifted from broad public consensus to a centralized instrument of executive messaging, and why that shift alters the precedent for future national commemorations. To understand the friction in Washington, one must look to historical precedent. In the U.S. bicentennial in 1976, the federal government faced a deeply fractured electorate following the conclusion of the Vietnam War and the institutional fallout of the Watergate scandal. The administration of Gerald Ford deliberately structured the milestone as a decentralized, nonpartisan framework, prioritizing local civic initiatives over centralized executive pageantry. The objective was institutional stability, using a shared historical baseline to de-escalate political polarization. For half a century, this remained the standard protocol for major American anniversaries. Congress would establish a bipartisan commission to manage funds, historical education, and public works, ensuring the event remained isolated from active electoral cycles. On the National Mall, this established operational protocol was replaced by logistical gridlock. A severe summer heat wave, coupled with an encroaching thunderstorm, forced federal authorities to issue an emergency evacuation order across the unsecured grounds. 155,000 individual attendees. The resulting displacement forced a reported 155,000 attendees into neighboring municipal streets and government corridors for multiple hours. As security forces attempted to clear the National Mall, chaotic scenes developed at primary checkpoints when segments of the crowd resisted the evacuation directive. The re-entry process began late in the evening at 9:45 p.m. Eastern Time, creating severe operational bottlenecks as thousands of citizens were forced back through mandatory metal detectors and physical bag searches within a compressed 2-hour window. The logistical strain pushed the scheduled program hours behind its initial timeline, turning a public celebration into a restricted security operation. The operational friction on the ground mirrored a deeper structural conflict occurring within the federal government itself. Years prior to the anniversary, Congress enacted legislation to establish America 250, a bipartisan organization designed to coordinate national, state, and local commemorative programs. However, the executive branch established a separate competing entity titled Freedom 250. This parallel structure bypassed traditional congressional oversight, redirecting the primary focus of the national capital's central events away from decentralized civic history and toward a highly centralized display of military assets and executive policy. Presidential historians have noted that this dual-track structure directly fractured the administrative clarity of the event, leaving local organizers, international observers, and federal agencies navigating two competing sets of directives, one bipartisan and statutory, the other executive and political. When the program finally commenced at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, the rhetoric from the executive podium departed sharply from traditional introspective anniversary addresses. Vice President J.D. Vance used his official platform to directly address domestic political opponents, categorizing critics of the nation's institutional framework as loud voices who focus obsessively on imperfections and the struggles of the powerless. 30-minute executive address delivered at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Following this, the President delivered a 30-minute address that explicitly leaned into active geopolitical conflicts, citing specific military actions involving Venezuela and Iran. During the speech, the President referenced his current tenure as a third term before stating he would bypass the topic to avoid controversy. Under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution and the structural norms of federal holidays, national milestone events are legally restricted from serving as platforms for active partisan campaigning. The explicit integration of policy objectives and domestic political critiques on the national mall marks a significant shift in how executive authority utilizes public, tax-funded commemorative platforms. The celebration of a semiquincentennial inevitably forces a nation to confront the mechanics of its own endurance. This milestone, however, leaves behind critical institutional questions that the data itself cannot resolve. When national anniversaries are split into competing congressional and executive entities, does the celebration still serve its statutory purpose of national cohesion? At what point does the centralized staging of military and economic power alter the historical precedent of civic reflection? The complete administrative history, organizational charters, and full transcripts of both the America 250 and Freedom 250 initiatives are linked in the description below. Review the primary statutory documents, examine the structural differences in how these events were funded, and leave your analysis of how these changes might shape the future of American public commemorations.